All right, I have started recording, and I will also share my screen here as well. I also see we have someone else joining in. Um, Imagineer or Alex, I saw that Yvonne was also asking some questions. Would either of you, while I'm getting set up, mind posting just a reminder about this event in the Community Edition channel in case anyone wants to hop in?
Uh, yeah, I can do it if you want me to.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you.
Here we go. All right. So for everybody today, we'll be following, in the future, we might choose to do these sessions looking at other tutorials, but for today, we're going to follow the quick start guide on Google Cloud with AWS services. So using Route 53 and SES for our DNS and our SMTP services. Let's see here. I've also realized I might need to reset one of my domain records, but we'll do that on the fly. Anyway, so I'll drop the link in here, and the purpose of kind of the next little bit is just to step through the process and hopefully document any questions along the way as people are getting set up. Feel free to follow along. However, I won't be able to, necessarily stop and go for a lot of the setup that folks might need to do beforehand. Um, cool. Let's jump into it. If you're brand new to Kubernetes and to Hubs and how Hubs works with Kubernetes, I'd highly recommend reading the introduction here, which was written by Zach Fox, which does a great job kind of just explaining what Kubernetes is and how Hubs works with it, as well as listing out all of the different services that Community Edition currently uses with Kubernetes. Um, Before we get started, in terms of prerequisites, first, I'm using Mozilla's Google Cloud Platform and AWS accounts. So I'm not going to go through that setup process here. What I will say, Google Cloud, it's pretty easy to get set up and to get command line tools all working. AWS, there's a couple other levels of abstraction to go through, but just know if you're attempting this for the first time, when I actually tried to do it with AWS, I ended up spending a couple of hours making sure that all of that, and especially billing, was set up the way that I want to. So just a disclaimer that the prerequisites can take a bit of time as well. Next, in terms of prerequisites, I'm using VS Code, and I'll try and stick away from it for today, but I also do like the platform Lens, Mirantis Lens, which is free. There is a free version of this. However, if you're signing up for the first time, it might say like you're automatically on a 14-day trial of professional. Really, it kind of automatically assigns you a license, and then later you can go back and get that free license. So there is a free version of it. They just use some dark patterns to try and get you to pay for the not free version as well. But this is a great interface that I like to use to be able to basically all of the commands that we do in the command line, a way to visualize those. And then VS Code, of course, this is our IDE code editor, the one that I choose to use. Part three, a few bits of software that we use. Obviously, you'll need some way to install some of the key command line tools for Google Cloud. So I used Homebrew, and then I installed using Homebrew that Google Cloud SDK. Um, kubectl, Kubernetes control, I think that's what it stands for. that is kind of the standard way of typing in Kubernetes commands to the command line. And then get text. This was actually, I think, specific to my operating system. But when we were first kind of running one of the scripts later on, we ran into an issue with the JSON web token generation. And it was because I was missing this software module. So, yes, any questions about prerequisites? Can y'all still hear me?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, just
Yeah.
making sure. Just making sure. I'm not looking at my screen, so I can't tell if you're interacting or not. Alrighty.
That was pretty funny. You got crickets.
Did someone post crickets or put it in the cricket noise?
No. The room has background ambient noise that is crickets.
Sure. Oh, the room is commenting
I'll let
on
you
me
continue.
on my presentation. What else? I think it might also make sense to touch on here an issue that I've seen a number of people running into, which is firewall rules uh, for allowing dialogue to work. So if we go to the Hubs community, or let's do Hubs Cloud GitHub. If we go to the Community Edition directory, under the README, you can see one of the first things that we have to do is to open up ports for TCP and UDP, and this is mainly for dialogue. By default on a new account, I think 80 and 443 should be open, even 4443 should be open, but I think in practice I've seen a number of people who need to open 5349 and then the UDP ports as well. Alex, I know someone was asking about that earlier today, and I pointed them to your GCP tutorial where you laid out how to do that programmatically here. So if
Yeah.
people are looking for commands, I need to update this document, but those are in there as well if you want to do them from the command line. Cool. All right, so let's do our DNS first. And for one moment, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I realize I haven't logged in yet. Just want to make sure I'm not sharing any sensitive information here. And this first step that we're doing is to set up our domain on our DNS. So before even this part of it, I have registered a domain of my choosing that we're going to use. I'm also going to quickly clear out the other records that we don't need. Okay. I will share my screen again, make it nice and big. Here you go. So I've gone to Route 53 on AWS. I've gone to hosted zones, and then I have registered a domain, which when you register a domain with Route 53, I believe it automatically creates a hosted zone for you with these kinds of records by default. So your name server and your SOA. I'm going to go ahead and stage 4 A records, which we'll use once our instance is set up to, you know, when we're issuing our certificates, those will be updating and those will be challenged to issue the certificates that we need for our instance. So I'm going to go ahead and create 4 A records. The first one can just be at the root domain. And for value, I'm just going to go ahead and put 000 for now as a placeholder. So we'll do one for just the root domain. We'll do one for cores, and then 0000. And please feel free to interrupt me if you have questions about what I'm doing. We'll need one for assets, 0000. No emojis. I don't want emojis. I wonder when they'll allow you to specify emojis in your domain record values. That will be the day. And then lastly, we need one for stream, and 0000. Okay, so we've staged our 4 domain records, so our DNS is good to go for now. If we scroll down, we'll see that the next step is we want to make sure that our SMTP is configured. Now, let me make sure I'm not going to show any sensitive information here, but if I go to SES, in SES, it's important to know that this does scope to your region. And I'm currently using North Virginia for mine, even though I believe I'm going to place my cluster on GCP. I believe I'm going to place it close to Texas, I think in the Dallas zone. I'll also note for the purposes of today, I have not bothered to get my SES out of the sandbox, but you will absolutely need to do that, just like you would have done for Hubs Cloud in the future if you're going to be using SES. People who use Elastic Email and Gmail for their SMTP, often they don't have to go through that, but for Amazon, I do need to get out of the sandbox if I want it to be able to send to non-verified email addresses, which is the majority of, if not everyone, who's going to be joining your hub and trying to send emails. Alex, do you know for Gmail or Elastic Email, is there like a sandbox that you have to get out of?
Not for Gmail. But if you are using two-factor authentication, you need to use an app password, not your regular Gmail password for the SMTP
Gotcha.
credentials.
Gotcha. So if I go back here and go to create SMTP credentials, this will give us the ones that we need for our server to use. Under username, it automatically generates one with a date timestamp. I'm going to go ahead and call this Feb 28 SMTP, just for, actually I'm going to call it Feb 28 setup session SMTP, just for my own purposes. The big thing, wanted to be able to send raw email, and with that, I also, just make sure that under the permissions, you have the SES send raw email. Create the user. Then it's going to give me these credentials. Please don't steal these. I'm going to delete them after this session. But I'm going to copy and paste those down on a note card, which I'll do quickly here. And sorry, folks, I'm going to be going back and forth. In fact, actually, I have 2 screens. Instead of turning off my screen share, I'm going to just have a notepad on my other screen that I copy and paste all kind of the sensitive stuff to. So I don't need the username, but I do need the SMTP username. So to say that again, I don't need the IM username, I need the SMTP username. Just copying and pasting that on another page, then grabbing the password as well. Cool. It gives me the warning because I haven't downloaded the CSV file. I'll go ahead and do that and then also put that somewhere on my local device. Then return to SES console. Okay, next step is to actually create our cluster that will accept our configuration spec for Community Edition. So I have already set up the Google command line tools. I'm going to do gcloud auth login, which is just the SSO login that we have here. I have my account. They've updated the interface. Yeah, Google sign-in has a new look. This is all a little new to me. Anyway, I've done that. If I go back to my terminal, I should see all of that looks good. Next, I'm just going to make sure that I'm configured in the right project. I already just saw, I know that I am. If you are setting up Google Cloud for the first time, it's helpful to organize your accounts in there into projects so that for one, it helps you kind of segment off for costs. If you are happening to run multiple servers, you might consider organizing them by the organization you're doing it for. So read up on the docs. It's helpful to get some information on how to utilize the organization of Google Cloud to your advantage. Okay. Next, we have to actually run the command to create the cluster. Also, are y'all able to see my screen okay? Is this big enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, you're good.
So I'm going to type gcloud container clusters create, and then my desired namespace. So let's call this Feb28 setup session. This is very long. Feb28 setup.
I'm not sure clusters is spelled right.
Custlers. Clusters. Thank you for catching me on that. Okay, so I've given it this namespace, and then for zone, I actually forgot which zone I want to do here. I think it's US Central 1, but let's go ahead and just look at the regions here. I want to be close to Dallas. Oh, US South 1A, that's the one that I want. That just happens to be geographically closest to where I am. So for zone, I'll type -- zone US South 1A. Okay. I'm going to run it. Oh, why did I get permission denied? Let's see what it says here. I mistyped. Let's run that again. South 1-A. So this should work now. And then we're going to sit and wait for about 15 minutes while this cluster spins up. So now is a great time if you have any questions to chat about those. Oh, have I shared my screen twice?
Maybe.
I don't know if you're seeing that, but that is quite interesting.
Oh, you may have, someone I may have cloned it.
Yeah.
For me, the top one is just a loading queue.
Huh. Well, I'm going to delete it just for our purposes.
This one here so that everyone can see it.
Let's see if there's anything we can do. Oh, there's certainly stuff we can do while we're waiting for this to be created. First of all, we can go ahead and look at the Community Edition GitHub repo and copy that locally and start making some changes. So in the background, I still have, it's still creating that cluster that I'm going to use. So if y'all are interested in looking through as well, here is the GitHub to the Community Edition section of Hub's Cloud. In here, I do want to point out that there are some lovely links to some guides from the Hubs team and the community, including Alex Griggs, who's in here, who has done a wonderful job documenting his custom Helm chart. So would recommend people take a peek at that as well. And we're going to be adding some more. I think even today we'll be adding another community guide on there. But we'll want to copy this down. So I'm going to go up to the Hubs Cloud repo, copy the, go to code, and then copy the URL here. And then in VS Code, I've created this February 28th folder that I'm going to open in VS Code. Then if I open my terminal, I'm just going to clone the repo from Hubs Cloud to use. So git clone, and then the link to Hubs Cloud. Awesome. We can see in my hierarchy that a Hubs Cloud folder has been downloaded. I'm going to change directory into Hubs Cloud. And then in here, we're really concerned with just what's in Community Edition since we're just doing setting up Community Edition. So I'll change directory into Community Edition as well. And in here, we see a few things. Number one, we see the README, but then we see two scripts and then two incomplete YAML files. So cbb.yam and hcce.yam are both incompleted, and their corresponding scripts are what will complete and then shoot out a hcce.yaml file once we're done with them. Looking a little bit deeper into render hcce, we'll see starting around line 16, we are asked to begin putting in some important information. There's a lot of change me with stuff that we'll want to enter in here. A little bit further down, all of this is just script stuff, but it's important to note if you're on a different operating system. I'm on a Mac, I think I'm on M1 Pro chip, which means I'm, what is it, ARM 64? Is that what it is? Or AMD 64? I always get them confused. Pro. Someone correct me before I go down too much of a rabbit hole.
Don't really know what you're looking for.
I'm just looking for the actual name of the OS here. If it's AMD 64, I think. Anyway, I won't go too much deeper into that. All that to say, there are some gotchas, especially working with just the scripts themselves, where you might run into some dependency issues if you're on a different operating system. We can also maybe show Alex has recommended a very nice pull request that does the render HCCE script in a Docker pod, which will remove kind of the dependency issue that you might run into. Cool. Let's see how our cluster's going. It looks like the cluster is still being health checked, so it still has a ways to go. But let's see what we can do in here already. So the hub domain, this is just the root domain that we're going to use. I'm using devmoran.com, and then the admin email. So for those who are familiar with hubs, the admin email is the one that is automatically assigned as promoted on the admin panel, and so it's the one that you'll use to test your SMTP first thing. So I have moran@mozilla.com. Namespace, this is arbitrary, but you will use it to access things in the command line hereafter, so name it something that you'll remember here. So I'm going to do Hubs Cloud Community Edition, Feb 28 will be my namespace. I'll just make it one word for fun. Okay. DB user, DB pass. All of these are things you should change, but for the purposes of this, I'm just going to keep it the same. Definitely a security vulnerability, especially if anyone watches this and tries to go back through. But just know these are things that you should change for some more safety in the future. Then we have our SMTP server, port, user, and password. So I'm going to copy and paste. In fact, I'm actually just going to split this window and open the exact same file in a different, just so y'all aren't seeing those sensitive credentials. So I copied them earlier when we were setting up the SMTP. I have my username. For the password over here, I'm just going to do that. But on my separate window, I'm going to... Oh, is this going to change it? Oh, it did change it. Okay, this won't work. Anyway, before we run render SSH, I'll remember to change this password, but for now, it's totally fine. Then for the server and port, I'm going to go back to here. This SMTP endpoint is what I'm looking for that server. I'll put it in there. And then for the port, I'm going to use 587, sorry, 587. Great. Node cookie, Guardian key, Phoenix key, these are all very important for security to make sure you use proper encryption. I'm going to do a random password generator for now. Alex, for your Helm chart, do you implement any kind of like password cycling in there?
No.
Yeah.
It's very close to the vanilla version of Hubs.
Do you know what would be a more secure way of doing it?
Like for these keys?
Yeah.
Well, once you've rendered out the YAML, then you get a config map that you can just update the config map and roll out a update for RET, and that'll update the internal system. I'm not sure if that'll affect any of the like internal storage or stuff though. If you roll those keys over.
Gotcha. Helpful to know. And then lastly, things to specify. Sketchfab is the 3D modeling platform where you can host 3D assets and make them. There's a marketplace for that, but they can give you an API key to access publicly available models and models associated with your account that you've purchased. So you can get an API key from there and put it in. Otherwise, you can just leave it as a question mark if you don't care about that. Same for Tenor, which is a GIF platform, a GIF platform if you want to upload anything from there. Cool. Let's check. Oh, great. So our cluster has been created. You can see for machine type, we use E2 medium, and then for number of nodes, we have 3. So that's useful for kind of cost saving information for anyone who is curious about that. In terms of other kind of, our team has configured the default settings of this, so there's more that you don't see here about those. But I will say from experience, this instance costs between 80 to 120 a month, depending on how much we're using it.
For that price, though, it would have to be on for the full month, though.
Oh, yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. No spin down, all 3 nodes running the whole time.
I have a question regarding
What did you say?
update.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry for interrupting you.
Oh, oh no. Did you hear that last response, that last answer, Arthur?
No, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
Did you have a question about price? Go ahead.
Yeah, for this version, how much was it for a full month with no downtime?
between 80 and 120 US dollars. But that is also to say, Arthur, that we have implemented a number of other optimization methods that cause some of that variability.
Gotcha.
And to clarify, if this is correct, that's if the computers it's on all the entire month. So you could scale down the nodes to 0 and not be charged for that time.
That's true. Yeah. So I haven't actually done auto scaling on GCP, but whenever I want to my personal instance on, oh, sorry, also my headphones are shutting down. I need to charge these.
Then I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Arthur.
The HubSpot company, the professional edition. How do you get how do you get such pricing then? If the price can vary so widely, is that a specific version? What's the deployment for the host cloud? Do you know about it?
So Hubs Cloud, when you set it up, also, can you still hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. When you set up Hubs Cloud, you using CloudFormation, you're able to specify the different node types. So you can select a T3 medium, I think is our recommended default, but then for events, I'd scale up to like a C3 extra large, or a C5 extra large for some big events with hundreds of participants. So in terms of instance types, unfortunately, it's not really a one-to-one. And if you're using Community Edition, you will have to dive into the cost-saving tools and to understand what the price of what you're going to be using is. Now, it's not easy to go through that, but just know that it's very difficult to fully estimate if you're not, looking at all of the options there.
Gotcha.
So Hubs Cloud Personal, you know, I,
The
it's
one
very
I'm
difficult
using
to say.
is a professional edition.
Sorry, what's that, Arthur?
The one I'm currently using is a professional edition.
Are you using Hubs Cloud or the managed
I am currently
subscription?
using HubSpot with higher tier or $80 a month. But
Okay,
I'm looking to move out of course
He's on the
look for alternatives.
subscription professional edition.
Yeah.
yes. So just
That's
for
why I wanted to
clarification,
compare and understand which one is the best to keep the similar pricing.
I see, I see. So I think you can certainly get an instance down to about $80 a month. It's going to be, take a little bit more um, work to do that. I would say by default, the instance that I'm setting up, it's between 80 and 120, which is obviously more expensive.
And if that's full time, so
Uh,
you are able to go down pricing
yes,
by doubling it.
yes. However, I will also say this is without an external database, which is the biggest consideration. Like if you're looking at your Hub's cloud costs, a lot of that is relational database, your RDS charges, and your file system charges. So it's the instance I'm setting up here is actually pretty expensive, in my opinion, for not having a external database by default.
Yeah.
And I think that's also goes to what we were talking about before you joined in, of it being three machines running constantly, which is more than, is probably necessary for the full deployment. Um, when you say Alex, I don't know if Alex is still here.
Yeah, like it just really depends on how you want to set up your system. Because the other thing too is with the vanilla version, if you shut down nodes, I don't know if your storage is going to stay, because the storage is based on the node's disk size. So
it depends if you're using Hub's Cloud. So it's probably the way I set it up is a bit janky, but so for something like so you can create a persistent disk. Is what I did is create a persistent disk, and then that kept all of the data so that you could still scale down the nodes. This is for Google Cloud specifically, and the data persisted.
Yvonne, you should look at my Helm chart. It has persistent volumes already baked in.
I did. I actually started building that. I have to say the file system that's set up gets really expensive really fast. So I just wanted to, I mean, I have credit, so it's fine. Like, you know what I mean? But thank God, but that was one thing that got really expensive. But I definitely want to dive in and check out the details and make sure I'm using best practices so I can like turn stuff off while I'm like playing around with it. But that was the thing that stopped me. And I skipped a step. I forgot to copy some data over when I was going through that tutorial. So that's next up on my agenda. It's awesome. It's an awesome step-by-step recipe. I really appreciate it. I'm learning a ton. I have a quick question regarding this HCCE YAML file.
Yes.
And this is a generic, like dumb question, like very like high level, but bear with me. If I have, another terrific recipe, by the way, let me just praise you real quick, Michael. Thank you very much for another great step-by-step instruction for all of this, because it really, really helped. And it worked like immediately. So thank you. So I have it up, I have Community Edition up and running on Google Cloud, right? And then I created persistent disks so that if I shut everything off, the info would stay. All that's working. It's very exciting. And then I used certbot, and all of that's working. And then I replaced the sort of one reference that exists in the HCCE YAML file regarding pointing to my Docker image, right, instead of the Mozilla Docker. Yeah, it's like,
sure.
If you're scrolling.
If I look for
yeah.
Stable latest. Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
This is for RET. Let me
Yes.
find hubs here. Okay.
So now my question is, I mean, if I update those and everything still works, does that mean that build of Community Edition with the second pointing to the second client image, like it's safe from the Mozilla server shutdown, or like?
So I think,
and how? Yeah, explain
yeah.
that. Would you clarify? Yeah.
So if I'm understanding correctly, everything's gone well. You've been able to essentially deploy a custom version of hubs, and you're wondering if that means that you are independent of Mozilla now.
Right. And
Yep.
then like how, like on a high level, if you don't mind me asking, because I'm not so familiar with Kubernetes and Docker. This is my first sort of experience with it. So I'm kind of thinking like what is it referencing, if anything, and what is the interaction between the client and the Hub Community Edition? And then if you were going to like make changes and update, I start to get a little bit lost because I'm like, I don't really understand where they relate to one another. Does that question make sense?
Michael, do you want me to explain?
Yes. I always welcome an opportunity for Alex to like completely just do it much better than I could have ever hoped to. So please go ahead, Alex.
Okay, so Yvonne, what you've built is a Docker container which you own. If it's on your hardware or your servers or your CI, that is your image, and you have control over where it lives and how long it lives. So what you've done is you've based an image off of the Community Edition code base and built your own image. So if the Mozilla Docker image disappears tomorrow, other than all of the other images, your hub system should stay up.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So like what I'm planning, or what I'm hoping the community ends up doing, and I'm going to be pushing for this, is I'm going to break off. I think we're going to end up forking the Mozilla code, building our own Docker images, and then that's what's going to be living in that file instead of the Mozilla ones. So as long as Michael and the Mozilla team doesn't delete the Docker files, we're good.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, that's interesting, because then it's confusing because if I well, as much as I had some firewall issues, that's a different subject, but like I opened the client instance on Google Cloud, and the first thing I see is it's like an old version of Google Cloud, and I'm like, what is this? Where is everything? What do I change? How is this related? Where do I make updates? You know what I mean? So it's confusing to me because I can't figure out how they're connected, and that's why I'm trying to get a different version of Compose up so I can play around with it more and understand how it's all.
Yeah, so just know that when you build a Docker container, you can think of it as a computer. It is its own server. So when you're installing it on Kubernetes, Kubernetes is just saying you're saying to Kubernetes, hey, here is a server, please put it somewhere and run it for me. And here's how to run it. Mm-hmm. That's all that YAML file is doing. So when you want to update your client, the actual better way, instead of updating that YAML file and reapplying it, is to actually set the image directly on the Kubernetes deployment. So you're running a kube control command. It is actually kube control set dash image, and then you tell it what deployment and what image to deploy. And as long as the image tag is different than what's on Kubernetes, it will roll over the system and put your new client up or your new image up.
So let's
it does.
If it's okay to go a little bit deeper into that there, Alex, how would you recommend relating that to the image pull policy? Because looking at the docs here, basically, we always do specify stable latest. So anytime someone deploys or does a new deployment, it will take the stable latest, but you do have to cycle the pods.
So no, it is never going to pull that image other than the first time you deploy that pod. So
gotcha.
If you deploy the stable latest tag and then you redeploy the stable latest tag, Kubernetes sees that image hasn't changed, so it's not going to kill the pod.
Yes, so but if I killed the pod and recycled it, it would.
No, it will not, because it's cached that image. So
okay.
It's not going to go back out and pull unless you say always.
Gotcha.
Then it'll go grab the image and pull it back.
And you could switch, because actually Rithik advised me to change on the HCC YAML file the image to always, and that's why.
Yes, because it'll always pull the image. Otherwise, you're getting a cache version of it, and it's not going to update. But
why are my changes not updating, or whatever, if you're using that process?
Yvonne, what I recommend you do is start using unique tags. Get away from the latest tag. It is horrible in production, because if something changes in that Docker image and you deploy it and you don't know what changed and everything breaks, and I've spent hours debugging issues where Docker containers, because it was latest version or the latest tag, they updated
and you just forgot
and things broke.
Yeah.
Right. So just know that using unique tags is the best way in Docker, because then you guarantee know what you're deploying.
Okay, cool.
When I build CIs, I always use the SHA from the actual Git commit that it's being built from and attach that as the tag.
Oh, that's smart.
Because then you know exactly what code is in that Docker container.
Gotcha. Okay, that's great.
Another big thing too there is with using the latest tag when you first deploy is good, because then you can guarantee to always change the image after the fact, right? So when I deploy production charts and stuff, I'll build a production tag and tag it with the SHA from the commit, so that I can always deploy the latest version of the production system, or I can deploy first based on the version of that Docker container.
So what I will also point you to, here's Mozilla's Docker Hub. We can see here the last time we published was about 2 days ago, and then someone pulled 5 hours ago to make an instance or something. When we published, we made a run number and then a latest tag, which is the one that automatically gets pulled for a new community edition instance. If I look at the code that and apologies for folks, we are hopping around a little bit. If you hop down to the end of the tutorial, we're looking at the section of deploying custom apps. And specifically right now, we're looking at deploying a custom version of Hubs, which is the front end of Hubs. But in the code that I recommend you use for your Docker file, if we look at the tags here, we can see one of them gets tagged latest, and then one of them just gets tagged with the run number. So in terms of versioning, what this won't be a number and a latest tag aren't always going to be by default in there, but you can change how you specify them and how you control that versioning in the Docker file too.
Michael, what I was trying to get at too, though, is when you're building them yourself, you should be doing this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Maybe we can do that today. Why not?
There you go. Well, technically, you're just adding another tag to the build command, right? You can do as many -t's as you want to that command.
Yeah. But what I will say, and this is a bigger question about being independent from Mozilla, right? If we look back into our HCCE and we look at Mozilla Reality, which is our Docker image, ostensibly the only thing that is truly linked to Mozilla right now are these images. And so to be fully independent of Mozilla, if that's your goal, you would do what Alex is saying, is fork every single repo and then just publish to your own Docker images. The bigger question of who's going to control the Mozilla repos moving forward is the one that it's too early for us to say one way or the other right now. But I'm intending to make a tutorial where I do walk through, if you do want to be completely independent of Mozilla, which I'm optimistic Mozilla will have a role in Hubs moving forward at some maintenance level, or at being able to help the community do maintenance of things. But if you do, I'm optimistic. No, clear ideas yet. But worst case scenario, I do want you to know how to fork all of these repos that are open source and have full autonomy over those as well.
Yeah, that's just, I'm disaster scenario, it's the events person in me.
Much better to plan for the disaster scenario and be pleasantly surprised if it's not that.
Exactly.
Michael, if we want to, we could use the Hubs community GitHub org that I have and do the forks there, and then push to Docker from that community.
We'll see. I mean, maybe for today, Alex, would we want to try that for this tutorial?
Like you can build the Docker images locally and push them to ECR
That's true.
or wherever you want, right? So I would say just build a single client, and the process is for the Docker side is very similar. The configuration on each service may be different.
Okay, gotcha. All right, big tangent. We're going to circle it back to actually apply our configuration chart now that the cluster has been created. It's all good. But just to kind of bring us back to how far we got before we started talking about custom versions of Hubs, we had created our cluster, and we had also finished setting up our render HCCE script with all of the important information. Now, if we go to Yes, right here, a little bit further down. Step number 5, we're actually going to run the render hcce.sh script, which will finish filling out this big hcce.yam file into an hcce.yaml file. And then the command also continues to apply it using kube control. I'm going to actually go ahead and just test my kubectl. So kubectl config. Let me see. Gosh, what's the command to get my current namespace? Get context, right?
You have config in there? Yeah.
Get context? Oh, okay. Get
Yeah,
context.
And then if you use context.
Oh, I just wanted to show that I can show that I'm in my correct context here. It's a big list that gets printed out, and you can see some stuff in here. But the main one, I can see there's a star next to Feb 28th setup cluster 1. Apologies for all the other names, but that's just to check, hey, my kube control command knows that I'm wanting to, when I run the script, target that cluster that I've just created. And it should, as it did, once the cluster was created, it changed my kube CTL context there. So I'm going to actually divide this in half, just so we can kind of see step by step. So I'm only going to do the first half of this command, bash render hcce.sh. So let me clear this actually. Bash render hcce.sh. I'll run it. It'll take just a moment. It does this pretty output, and we can see that in my community edition folder, a bunch of new files have been added, namely a lot of keys and then this hcce YAML file. And if I look through here at the very top, it has added my domain. So at the very top of the hcce file, it had the it was asking for the variable once we applied the script. So we can see that in there. If we go further down, we can see that I have my SMTP password incorrectly in there. So in a moment, I'm going to actually go back through and use my actual SMTP password. But we can see everything has been filled out with this information. So let me bring this over off screen and run it once more, and then we will actually apply the chart, or not the chart, the configuration. So I'm running it again with my proper password. Cool. Let me actually, I'm also going to remove the password again just for safekeeping. Okay, so I'm back in here. I've got my HCCE YAML file and a bunch of tokens as well. And now I'm going to apply it to my cluster. So I'll grab the command. It's just HCCE or kubectl apply, and then we're specifying the file here. So kubectl apply -f and then hcce.yaml. And it will take a moment on first application here. Cool. Looking through, we can see a number of different resources are being created. Namely, we can see that there are, I guess, pods being created when it says deploy.apps, config maps, and then services. What you don't also see is some default secrets as well. But now I can actually check to see what has been created. So I'm going to do kubectl get pods, which should list out, oh, what did I do wrong? Oh, my namespace, I think is what. And I think yeah. Sorry. No dash get pods, and then I need to specify my namespace, which will be HCCE Feb 28. Okay. So this is the big thing to check as soon as you've deployed. This is a list of all of the different kind of key code bases that are running on our instance. And looking through, we can see a few different things. There's some that are still creating, so it might take a little bit longer on those. And then Reticulum is the only one with 2 here. And typically when only 1 is running, that means that there's a problem, which we will see there. I think there is, by default, some sort of problem. I just ran the command again, and I can see there's no more container creating message. I'm still getting that Reticulum issue. So we can look at the pod logs in just a moment, but I wanted to show just how to look here. I also show how to get the deployment as well if you want to kind of verify that it was done correctly. So kubectl get deployment -n for our namespace, and we'll do HCCE feb28. Great, so we can see all of these were deployed, and then I can also do describe deployment to see some more information. So, lots of information in here. Right. I'm gonna press on. What should I do next? I think let's check to see if the load balancer has been created. So kubectl get svc for service, and then we're targeting the load balancer, so lb. And then specify our namespace, HCCE feb28. Great, and so it has been created, and I'm looking for this external IP. This is what I'll use with my DNS record. I'll update my DNS records with that we had staged earlier. So I'm going to copy this external IP, go back to root 53, go back to my hosted zone, and then I'm going to update all 4 of those A records, update that placeholder value with our external IP. Right. And it's going to take a little bit for those DNS records to propagate for us to actually begin accessing our instance. Let me see here. I find myself when I'm debugging an instance, most often I'm looking in the Reticulum pod logs. So maybe let's go ahead and just take a peek in there, since it looked like it was having some little issue in there. Oh, actually, no, it's not. It's actually running just fine.
You're probably waiting on the migration to happen.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and just show how to do pod logs. kubectl get. Alex, do you remember the command? Why am I having trouble remembering it?
Get pods --n namespace. That'll give you all your pods.
Mm-hmm.
And then,
oh, sorry, I need to target the specific logs by name.
Yeah, so either way, just run that command so everyone sees that you get a list of all the pods.
Yep.
You can also run, if you just hit up once, Michael, and then get rid of pods and change it to all, and that will show you all of the deployments, replica sets, pods. Services, yeah.
Cool.
Balancers,
cool.
All that stuff there. And then, yeah, you just target the actual pod, and it's kube logs pod namespace.
Cool.
Do we need both Reticulum pods? There, I saw 2 listed there.
Yes.
Yeah.
One is a sidecar, and it's listening to the database.
Gotcha. Oh, so I had, I think, just 1 load. I wonder if it
Yvonne, if you are looking at the logs for the ret pod, you can actually, at the end of the command, type in either Rectilium or Postgres. I think it's Postgres, I think is,
Yes.
And it'll actually show you the logs for that specific container within the pod. because when you see the 2 of 2, those are actually containers inside of the pod.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
No worries. One thing I would recommend everyone do is look at the kube control autocomplete and add that to your terminal, because it makes things a hell of a lot easier.
Alex, what am I doing wrong here about my logs? I don't need your help, Alex. I'll figure it out myself. I'm joking. Yeah.
Screen's all fuzzy from you.
kubectl logs my pod.
Go back. Yeah, you need the -n namespace, because you're looking at the default namespace, not the correct namespace from the pod.
Thank you. I always forget that. I'm sure you could change your context to specifically that namespace if you want to be quick, but
you can default it, but it does get annoying if you're running other namespaces.
Yeah. Okay. So it's just listed out all of the logs for the pod so far. I want to look up at the tippy top. Oh, it may have even cut out. We can see as it was going, it was waiting for some other pods to be created, and definitely was waiting for the PGSQL pod to be created too. So we saw some errors when it came to the database and then getting started with the database, but right now it looks to be functioning properly. I'm going to do something to demonstrate here. So I hope my DNS records have propagated correctly. I'm going to try and go to my domain. And then since we have not issued certificates for all of these yet, I will be self-signing these certificates for now. So right now, since we don't have the certificates properly issued, on my browser, it's going to give me this potential security risk. I can click advanced if I'm on Firefox, and then click accept the risk and continue if I know where I'm going. Now, I'm still in testing mode. I don't want to worry about my certificates yet. Once I go here, I'm still going to get an error. And that's because when we issue certificates, it's for all 4 of those A records that we created. So we need one for dev.devmoran.com, cores.devmoran.com, assets.devmoran.com, and stream.devmoran.com. So even though I just self-signed the certificate for the root domain, I still have to do it for assets and cores and certain stuff. And so if I go to my console logs and I go to network and I rerun, I can see I'm getting an error here for assets.devmoran. So I'm actually just going to copy and paste this, and I know I typically run into that, but since the CSS file for this page is hosted on assets.devmoran.com, I need to self-sign assets.devmoran.com in order to get it. So I've just copied and pasted that assets.devmoran.com URL, and I can go to advanced and self-sign that certificate. So if I go back here and refresh, I should be able to see a basic user interface here. Now, Stream and Cores, I haven't tried loading anything from outside of here, and I also haven't tried connecting an audio stream, but if you haven't issued your certificates yet and you want to be testing, you will have to self-sign those as well. But for now, I've just connected. I'm going to run my reticulum pod logs again here, and I'll see a bunch of kind of messages indicating that I have joined for the first time. I'm getting some refused join logs here. I don't think that's an issue. Oh, sorry, that's because it tried to log me in. And I had previously joined, I think my browser is remembering my login credential from a previous deployment, but obviously this is a new deployment and I'm trying to send a token from a previous one, so that's why it's having those issues. Anyway, yeah, and I can see here I'm even signed in as mmoran@mozilla.com, which I should not be. That's just it remembering from a previous time that I've done this. So I've signed out, so I've cleared everything. Was someone about to say something?
I just have a quick question about, I don't want to derail everything, about certbot because it was part of the quick start recipe.
Yes.
Is certbot something that's independent, or is that related to hubs, or is it hosted anywhere? Is it just an independent thing? If we use that, are we?
So it is a hubs thing, and I'll touch on that a little bit in just a minute once we're
Okay.
past
Oh,
the
sorry.
testing.
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead.
It's okay. I was just we'll get to that after finishing testing the SMTP. So I'm going to go ahead and enter my email. If I go back, I'm going to check my reticulum logs again, and I shouldn't, if everything's good, I should not see any errors from my SMTP. Everything looks good, but a lot of people, when they're first doing it, they may not have specified the right port or the right SMTP endpoint, and reticulum logs is a really good place to check for those errors. But anyway, I haven't seen anything there. My email, and I have gotten an email from there. Cool. So verification complete. I should be able to join admin too. If I run the reticulum pods again, I'll see, yeah, everything looks good in here. One thing I do want to check, yeah, if I go to another tab, I'll see there's been one account created. This is that account for my email address that was created on when I first connected. Okay, so SMTP is working. That's great. We're able to self-sign certificates to get in. It seems like our instance is relatively stable, at least for this first step. But I don't want to have to be self-signing certificates. I don't want to teach anyone who's trying to join my hub to do it. So we need to issue some certificates properly. I'm going to scroll down here to step 7, configure certificates. So Yvonne, to answer your question, certbot uses I don't know if it's free and open source, but a very, very popular service called Let's Encrypt for people to, and, as you can see here, it's sponsored by a lot of people, including, I think, somewhere on here. Yeah, Mozilla's number 3 on there. So it's an encryption service that allows you to create these certificates. I'm not describing it as well as I should, but it's kind of the industry standard. Alex, I think for your Helm chart, you're using a different way of targeting Let's Encrypt. All that to say, certbot is Hubs's way that we have for targeting Let's Encrypt.
So Cert Manager uses certbot under the hood.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So Mozilla built their own, they added another bot to it.
Yeah.
That's why it's bot.
Yeah. And certbot, I'm pretty sure is open source because you can build it from a Git repo.
Gotcha. So we should probably update. I mean, if we were thinking about disaster scenario, we should maybe update that or change it.
You should use Cert Manager, like the Helm chart, because that actually will automatically update your certificates inside your cluster for you. You just keep it running and it deals with it.
Yes, I remember that from your tutorial.
Yeah. And I don't think this is an open source repo, the certbot one that we've built, Alex. But if we look into cbb.yaml or
No, I meant certbot. Certbot is not certbot.
Yes. But to answer Yvonne's question, certbot bot is not open source currently, so we need to look at that.
Gotcha. Yeah, go on the list.
So, yeah, but just looking in here, the one image that it is referencing is a Mozilla Reality one with certbot referenced. Cool. Let's see here. Where were we? We were about to get started with certbot. Okay. So if I go up to cbb.sh, at the very top, this is where I will update my information. I do want to use the same namespace that I specified for my just community edition deployment. admin email, this can be different than your, oh gosh, no emojis. It can be different than your, than the one you specified for your admin account. However, I just keep them consistent. It's basically when you register the certificate, it needs to associate it with an email account. And then your domain to get started. So I'm going to devmoran.com. Okay. And then I'm just going to run, the command is just bash, just run the script. So bash cbb.sh. And if I run it, it's going to step me through each of my 4 domains. So if you see here at the bottom line, it says press enter to continue for my root domain, devmoran.com. So I'm going to run that. You might see an error. Honestly, we should update the console logs here. But it's basically saying, hey, there's not currently a certbot-bot-http pod in my cluster that's going to be doing this challenge to issue the certificate. So the error you see here, don't worry about it. It's actually a good thing. It means you're on track. But that, I know that can be cause for concern to see that in there. Basically means we need to issue a new CBB pod that will issue the certificate. Sorry for the mouth sounds, I'm drinking some water. Okay, so it was correctly issued, and now I'm on to assets, and we're going to just repeat this for all 4 of them. It looks like the old pod was deleted, and now a new one is being used for this new subdomain. While I'm stepping through this, Alex, Arthur had a question. Arthur, I hope you're still here. But if we wanted to use a subdomain as the root domain, do you know if we would just in root 53? I haven't done this before.
You just create a new hosted zone and apply the name. You create a name server record on the top level. From the subdomain, the subhosted zone. So
Gotcha.
These name servers that you just created, you just copy those and make a subdomain name record on the main hosted zone.
Perfect. So basically, to repeat that, if I wanted to use that, Arthur, are you still here, by the way?
Yeah, I'm following you.
Okay. So to answer your question, if you want to use a subdomain instead, basically what Alex advised here is create a hosted zone for your subdomain. So I just created hubs.devmoran.com. And then in devmoran.com, I would create a CNAME record called hubs.devmoran.com. Oh, wait, sorry.
It's a namespace. Name. Yeah.
An NS record. And then I would copy and paste. I'm not going to do it in this demonstration, but you would copy and paste all of these values from hubs.devmoran.com into the record that you create in here.
Question, can you do the same for subfolder, like devmoran.com/hubs?
So you're wondering...
Is that something that is also possible for subfolders, like devmoran.com/hubs? Or
that
should it be
that would take some extra configuration because you'd have to set up kind of. So yes, it is possible, but I think you would have to have dev.hubsmoran.com hosted somewhere. I'm assuming that's like a marketing page, and then you would need to configure it to where if you go to /hubs that it will direct to there. So.
Gotcha.
You can't do that with DNS, but you'd have to throw like a load balancer in front to be able to redirect to that.
Okay, makes sense.
A bit more complicated.
I will not do this then.
Not to be discouraging, just I haven't obviously tried what you're looking for there, but it's the internet. There's pretty much a way to do anything.
I'm not
Just
fluent in backend, so I will make sure I use the most documented route.
you should be able to change the ingress like setup, but it's way past what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. Oh. I feel like I hear someone talking far away.
I hear that voice in the
me.
distance.
Hello? Hello? Am I loud?
Hello. Who's that?
Hey. It's me, M sub 2.
Oh, hello. Good to see you.
Yeah, I was just saying there's a little bit of spam in the Hub's Discord if somebody wants to go bop that real quick.
Oh dear, thank you for the warning here. I'll go and get that. Interesting. That is a weird bit of spam there.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's not safe for work or something else.
True.
Banned, delete messages from previous 3 days. There we go. Okie dokie. Thank you, M sub 2 for the heads up on that.
Sure thing.
Had you been in the meeting following along, or did you just hop in for that heads up?
I hopped in maybe like 5 minutes ago.
Oh, cool. Okay. So to pick back up where we left off, we were finishing walking through. Oh, sorry, I still have to do it for cores, but I'm on my last kind of certificate challenge here with CertBotBot that's going to issue my last certificates. Also, sorry, I have not been watching the chat. Jua, I just saw your message here. This session is fascinating, but for the most part, the details are overwhelming. Questions to be answered wherever, however. How recent are VR functionality updates? Spoke being spun off to? Okay, all good questions. A few outside of the scope of kind of this setup session. But while my last certificate is being issued, I'll try and hit as many as possible. VR functionality updates, I'm assuming you mean some of the bugs with existing VR, but maybe also, support for new hardware. Maybe that's what you're thinking. Right now, we've paused all development on new hardware. We're focused on making sure that things go smoothly with the shutdown, at least the Hub's team is. That being said, I've seen a lot of cool demos being done from the... Oh, there's an echo here. Jua, I think my... Well, maybe it's not Jua. Someone, I'm getting my audio back through your microphone. It's either Jua or M sub 2. I'm pretty sure it's Jua here.
I think it's Jua. I have headphones on.
Okay, Jua, I have muted you just for a moment while I finish here. But VR functionality, I've seen a bunch of people doing demos and tests with AVP and, Quest Pro. I know we didn't even get finished with some of the major testing we wanted to do with that. But all that to say, we've paused our development. So please, if you're interested in from the community, please take that up and continue moving forward there. Spoke being spun off too, I don't have anything to say at this point about whether some organization will take over Hubs while another will take over Spoke. As far as I'm aware, both of those will stay together. However, what I will say about Spoke is it's been a number of years since that has had a meaningful contribution, and I think most of the kind of active work on scene deployment has been done on the Blender add-on. Avatars and behavior graphs. I'm not sure exactly what you mean by avatars here. However, behavior graphs, that's something that we're hoping to pass off to the community and has that, way of using node-based programming in Blender to create customizations to hubs. So hoping that is going to continue beyond Mozilla's support of hubs. And then can we visit your newly created Hubs instance in a moment when we're done with getting this set up? Maybe we can see how many people can hop in. and if we run into any audio issues. But that would be a great load test. That's a great recommendation. In fact, are we to that point? I think we are, to give it a good test. If everyone would like to, please go to devmoran.com, and first of all, please let me know if you run into a certificate issue as you're joining. I think you will. I think there's a gotcha that we need to fix here. But go ahead and try joining. I think you should still run into, still getting certificate issues from Arthur. So, a few things here. First of all, after I've issued these certificates, by default, I might need to delete and recycle my pods just to get the new certificates included. But there is, and for people who are trying to join, please do not self-sign certificates. I'm going to have you test out again in just a moment. But what was I saying? I was saying there is one gotcha order of operations here that we need to handle, which Alex is the HA proxy default certificate, which is the biggest gotcha that I've seen for anyone who's been setting up things. Yvonne, I'm sure you're familiar with it too.
Yes.
It just needs to be documented better, but it's an unfortunate kind of order of operations thing in here.
It's okay. I got to help someone else with the same problem.
I forgot, it's under here. I'm going to get to it in a second. Okay, here we go. On line 1233 I'm in my hcce.yaml file. I have an old certificate reference that is not useful once I've issued my certificates using certbot. So it's still, HA proxy is still using this default certificate instead of the ones that I've just issued. So you can edit it. I'm just going to comment it out and then reapply.
Just to complicate things a little bit,
Yes.
if you want to, instead of reapplying the file, you can edit the deployment directly through the kube control
I like it.
command line. So just grab all your pods, get the name of the HA proxy pod.
Okay.
And then it's kube control edit. It's probably deployment. It's not like you're gonna want to. It's edit deployment, and then it's just HA proxy, not the pod name.
Oh. Okay.
And then it'll be your namespace as well. And this will bring
for
up
people that are wondering why we're doing this. This is just a way to do it without having to reapply and restart. We're gonna go straight to the pod itself and edit it. Then we want.
So it should look exactly the same. This is the applied version of the file that you're looking at in the code editor.
I've done something wrong.
No, so you get both. You get two copies of it. You have to just scroll down to see the actual version of it. You're in Vim right now. That's why it's acting weird.
Okay. I'm not the best with Vim. I've always done sudo.
It's right there. It's right there.
Yeah,
so you can just go to the beginning of the line, hit I, and then comment it out.
Hit I?
Yeah, it'll let you insert.
Oh, and just like that, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then hit escape, and then you want your colon, like so shift semicolon, and then it's WQ, and then hit enter.
Okay.
And now we've edited it. So you've changed the config, but you haven't changed the pod. So
Yes.
Now the command that I posted in the chat there, Michael, will roll over all the pods in the entire like the whole namespace will redeploy all of the deployments.
And why should we do that, Alex? This is a rhetorical question. Why should we do that rather than just the one pod?
So you can delete the pod or you can do the rollout. So they do the same thing. This is the like the proper way to do it with Kubernetes is use the rollout command. And you can actually just add after deployment in between the -nn deployment, the name of the deployment you want to roll over or you want to restart. So you put HA proxy there and then the namespace that will only roll over that one deployment.
Gotcha. So I'm going to do all of them just for fun, but
yeah. So as it goes through, it'll restart everything. So now when you look at the pods, you'll see them terminating and repopulating.
Already, and they've already respawned pretty quickly.
Yeah,
oh no, they haven't.
So,
you can see some are terminating, some are creating, some are already running.
So, Michael, one of the reasons why you do it this way instead of just deleting the pod is this gives you the ability to have graceful rollover. So you're not killing off the pod if someone's connected to it.
I see. Okay. Would they just have to refresh before doing it?
No. So like Kubernetes will actually load balance in the background. So if a pod dies and a new one comes up, the internal load balancing system will actually know, hey, point at the new one. If you end up, yeah, that's why Kubernetes is so awesome because you can have it scale and downscale, and it deals with all of that stuff for you. So if you rerun that command, you'll now see that all the pods should have come up. And if you refresh, you'll end up seeing the newer, like if you change the client, you'll have to refresh because the pod most likely has changed.
Yeah.
Right. So the caching needs to catch up there. And that is not something that Kubernetes can deal with because it's just the way that the system works.
So folks who are rejoining, are you able to get in without certificate issues? What do you say? It works now. That's amazing.
Yep.
Let me drop a room URL for us, and we can see if dialogue works by default. I sure hope it does. But here's a room URL for us to join in. It'll be an empty void just because I haven't imported anything into there. Oh, and I also let's restart this. So the main thing we want to test here is we should all be gray blobs, but I want to test our audio. Oh, people joining in. I'm going to mute myself in our main room right here. M2, can you hear me? Do I have my audio output correct? I do.
Hello.
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 We have
Okay.
audio.
I cannot hear M2, I can't hear you, but I can hear Imaginer. Oh, we have Fabian in here too. Oh my goodness. Hello, Arthur. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do.
Hello. This is amazing. We've got it done in just such a short session. We got everything in here. Of course, there's so much more to consider in terms of external database and stuff, but this is very cool to see us all in here and collaborating. Let's spawn in a little emoji there. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to call this a successful test and go back to the main room. Alrighty, everyone. This is Michael back in our server on hubs.mozilla.com. Hello, hello. It worked. That's amazing. And just like that, we've gotten a instance running to a pretty decent degree on Community Edition. So with that, my job is done. I'm kidding. There's a lot more to talk about, especially when it comes to like your data and what happens if you delete these pods and then nothing, what happens to all the stuff you've uploaded. So there's a lot more to talk about there.
Yeah, don't spend too much configuring your beautiful scenes at this point.
Yes. So big takeaway here. I think let's actually test in the admin panel. Do I have a Git? Okay. where this is my does someone have a hub scene? Maybe I can use this main one.
Just click the link in the admin center and grab a pack.
So I'm going to try and on my DevMaran one, just importing one scene. I'm going to go here. It should work. Great, I've imported it.
It'll work temporarily in whatever drive you have it hooked up to, the temporary drive.
Yeah, so
I have a question.
I'm able
that's...
just to finish this. Just to finish this real quick, I'm going to demonstrate how I've just imported content. I've imported the scene. It's being run directly on one of my pods. I think that's the right way to characterize it. But if I delete it, it's gone. And I think it's Rhett, the one to delete, right?
So Michael, it's technically not gone. It's just that you might get scheduled on the wrong node.
I see.
Because like the node is where the drive lives right now. So if Rhett gets put onto, say you have 3 nodes and you first install on node 1, and then you save data there, and then Rhett gets moved to node 2, the data doesn't exist because the nodes use 2 different drives.
Gotcha.
But if you get it back onto node 1, then it could technically have the storage again.
Well, so that's deleting Rhett, right? What if I deleted PGSQL?
It's the same thing. They're both using the local node drive. So
gotcha.
If it gets scheduled on the same place, then you're good. One way you can get around this is using the node selectors and node paint in Kubernetes, which will allow you to schedule a pod on a specific node.
I see. Okay. Oh. So there is a way to do storage, but Alex, make the argument doing this all on an external database is the equivalent of how we do it on Hub's Cloud. It's the right way to do it for a production environment.
Correct. Yeah. Like you don't get backups with this system right now. You don't get there's no data protection within Postgres. Whereas if you move it to like RDS or Cloud's SQL, then you get all of that out of the box and they're managing the database for you.
Yeah. So it is the way for anyone who really cares about hosting other people, especially if they're creating work. Basically, this current setup, and I don't think we'll have time to go into setting up an external database today. But this setup is great for just getting started and beginning to hack around. And as Alex said, it's even a useful exercise to practice deleting pods to see how that impacts the content that you've uploaded.
Even just run that rollout command, the rollout restart, and just watch what happens. Because that will, if you get rid of the HA proxy part of that, or I guess you ran the whole thing. So that will delete all your pods, and it will reschedule them on different nodes if it needs to.
Yeah, so, and it will probably mess up my my room URL too.
If Postgres gets on the same node, it won't. But if it doesn't, then it will.
Okay.
So
well, let's see.
You're gambling. You're rolling the dice, Michael.
Ooh. feeling alive. Okay, so I've just restarted them. I'll wait just a minute before testing it out, but new pods coming out.
My guess is it will move around because it needs certain ports, and they won't be closed or they won't be available until the pod dies. But you need the other one to come up for the pod to die, so it should shift around.
Okay, so what kind of error is this here? It just says internal server error, which means that our pods are running okay, but something is.
So that means your load balancer's running, not your pods.
Okay, let's check.
When Rhett goes down, it should be giving a 503.
Yeah, it should not be this internal.
So what I think is happening right now, Michael, is because you've moved your Postgres, it's now redoing the migration. So it's resetting everything up. So that's why you're getting a internal server error, because it's actually pointing at the original Rhett pod like HA proxy is, but the new one is now taking over.
Let's see. I'm just getting my pod logs. Why?
So that would be the new one.
I thought I did just grab the new one. Oh, maybe it's because it doesn't have the sidecar up yet.
Yeah, so is Yvonne still here? If you see in that command there, you see how it says it default container ret rectilium out of ret and postres? Those are the containers I'm talking about. So Michael, if you redo that log command and put post rest in the end of it, it'll show you the logs for just that container instead of both of them. Because what it's doing right now is showing both of them.
If I just type Postgres.
Yeah.
Okay.
So now you're seeing PG bouncers failing, right? So now we're getting a different answer because we're actually looking at a different container. So if you rerun that log command, you're going to see just the ret logs, not both logs.
Gotcha. Connection successful, config reloaded.
Yeah. So if you go up, like get rid of the post rest part of that log command, and you'll see the ret logs again, and that should now be up. Right. Okay.
So retrying here. Okay, it looks like I should start.
Yeah, your gamble worked.
Yeah. So it did work out. Okay, it was basically a 1 in 3 chance, right? Yeah, so I had a 1 in 3 chance of that working correctly since I have 3 nodes, 3 machines that these pods could be scheduled on. Awesome. 10 minutes left. We've covered everything except deploying a custom app, although we had a long tangent about that. But at the bottom of the tutorial, there's how to set other content security policies and page controller stuff, and then also how to deploy a custom app. Maybe I'll just point out this is always a gotcha for people. Where should I go? In HCCE YAML, I'm gonna just Control F CSP, and here, so the new admin. If we go back to the admin panel, it does not have those server settings that you may be used to if you're using Hubs Cloud currently, where under setup there would be advanced server settings where you can be able to call an external API, like for instance, if we wanted to use the OpenAI API. There you would need to put it in, I think, connect source, or it's either connect source or script source. I'm blanking off the top of my head, but in there you would basically do space and then do, I think it's like API dot dolly, whatever the API endpoint is in there. But basically, instead of doing it in the admin panel, we now need to do it directly in our deployment file and reapply, or as Alex showed, we can update our config map for ret. Sorry, Alex didn't show that, but we did just show how you can edit an existing pod, but
it's the same process.
So it would be edit ret config, I think.
Well, yeah, it should be ret config, and then you need the namespace as well.
Yeah, I always forget the namespace.
You don't have a resource type. It needs to be a config map in front of ret.
Yep.
You should be able to put CM as a quick little...
Oh, yeah. Okay. So in here, we can see this same information here that we'll want to use. And you can see here also things like our SMTP password. Those are not stored in the config map. They're variables. They are housed as secrets. Is that, I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but if they're housed as secrets, because secrets are something else.
Technically they're not.
Environment
there
variables.
Are secrets. Well, there's secrets in Kubernetes. They're environment variables in the pod.
Yes. Okay. So basically, we would. I'm terrible at Vim, but you would add it in here and then do the rollout command that Alex shared. Gosh.
What about, I don't think it's necessarily covered here, and if it's too much to get into, what about Cloudflare workers?
I've not set those up. I've never set those up for Hub's Cloud, but what specifically are you kind of hoping to get with those? Just
Well, I mean, I know that, well, definitely in Hub Clouds, you could set those up and configure them just to keep costs down. And
yeah.
I noticed that was sort of, it's not set up as an option as part of the GUI in Community Edition, but I wondered, I was just wondering about, yeah, how that might be configured, but it's probably a larger topic.
I think it's outside of the scope of the next 7 minutes, but I can mark it down as a
Yes.
something we should go into in the future.
Cool. Thank you.
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and also I'm also gonna, well, we might answer some good questions in the next 7 minutes, but I wanted to open it up for questions. Alex, sorry I interrupted you.
No, it's all good. I'm just wondering, I haven't seen anything about Cloudflare in the Community Edition, so I'm wondering if the configs are even there. I'm just looking, so. Because I'm wondering if that was a part of... No, it looks like there is code here still.
Yeah, well, I know that it's sort of like my browser defaulted to, like I found a page to set up Cloudflare workers, and I was just like, oh, like, but wasn't part of the actual GUI. It was just, there was no button, but it was still there, but I didn't know if it was hooked. I didn't look deeper than.
M sub 2, I wanted to ask how was the WebXR Discord? Did your instance go okay for that?
Yeah, it went really well. I didn't have any issues with voice dropping out on my end, at least. You can hear me okay, right?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing that I noticed was that a couple people were saying that it took them a little while to load in. But one of them, he lives in Tel Aviv, so I imagine it was just a matter of like
Gotcha.
the server being hosted in US East.
Gotcha. Can I ask what you ended up using? Did you end up continuing with Hetzner, or did you switch to OVH or something?
I ended up switching to OVH.
Gotcha.
Out of the different options that I was looking at, it seemed like it was the cheapest as far as resources go. I think I'm paying like, for the managed Kubernetes, I have like the base like B27 compute instance, which comes out to like $29 a month, and then I'm paying like a few dollars extra for some block storage, where I've routed the RetDB and the Postgres data storage too.
Gotcha. I'm curious if I'm able to share real quick. Fabian, are you in here? I saw you hop into the other one. I saw Fabian hop into the, okay, so you do have the default one. I did want to share with the folks here, I'm about to, after this meeting, I'm going to post in the Discord, but Fabian, I'm pleased to announce, is one of our Community Edition documentation awardees, and he's put together a wonderful tutorial about using OVH. So this is just another really great platform to consider when you're looking at other things. And Fabian really hustled once the news about Hubs came out, the Mozilla shutdown came out. He really hustled to get this tutorial out quickly, and he's told me he's open to feedback as you're testing it out, so he can keep refining it. He wasn't originally going to deliver this until a couple of weeks from now, so I'm really thankful he pushed to get it out so that folks can have more time with the material.
Yeah, thank you, Fabian. When I decided to go with OVH, I checked your site on like thinking on the off chance you might have documented it already, and that guy was very helpful.
Oh, did you just stumble upon it on his wiki?
It's like I remember like visiting his site and knowing that he like wrote a lot of stuff down there, so I was like, he
Yeah.
probably wrote it down, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you again, Fabian. I hope everyone considers OVH as an option and follows along with Fabian's work. I know Fabian's also, tested a little bit with Hetzner, so we're still seeing kind of where demand goes for this, but I highly encourage you to start testing out with OVH as one of those options. Fabian also has a long form and a short form tutorial video in there. And from what I've heard, he's mainly followed the same setup as the same process as I have followed today, but with this other platform. Oh, and in French for the long form too. Yeah. So super thankful to have another great document out there. And that also leads me to, before people drop off, next week Fabian will be present during this time and will be walking through the process for that he's outlined in here. So he's going to take over and show the process on OVH. And of course, I'll be here as well to answer questions, but I'm hoping some of the community edition documenters can come in over the coming weeks and show how they've done it. Yeah. MSub 2, maybe we can revisit Hetzner 2 to see if we can get it working there. I'd like to try and get it working in a non-managed environment. Of course, my time is just a little bit limited with all of the shutdown stuff, but it would be great to show how to do that too.
Like, I did get it running on Rancher on my home lab, so on servers that I'm running in my basement. The only issue I was having was audio with my ISP. And my firewall. But I could go through that process of setting up either a Rancher cluster or a Kind cluster and then going from there.
Yeah. I think non-managed Kubernetes environment is definitely something that won't be for everyone, but I think is important to kind of give people more versatility than just GKE or EKS, kind of the main big ones.
Yeah, the thing is once you move away from managed services, then you're the one that's starting to deal with IP management and networking, and it spirals. I don't know if anyone's ever installed anything on bare metal, but it gets complicated fast.
Yeah, absolutely. My goal with the kind of coming weeks of documentation, I have a lot to do on the hub shutdown side, but I really want to show how to add persistent volumes to this current setup, the quick start guide, and then maybe even look at some of those other platforms. So that will be kind of second on my list, is addressing a non-managed environment. Cool. We are at 3 p.m. my time, but that kind of marks the end of things. Y'all, I will have to go out pretty soon, but maybe I can catch one or two more questions as I'm leaving. Please come back next week. Same time, we'll go through the process of setting up again and answer any questions. So for folks who haven't dove in yet, please go ahead and dive in and bring your questions back next week.
Thank you.
Dive in.